covered so far. I am your host, John Salvador, and this is episode maybe 5 or 6. I'm starting to lose count, which is a good thing. Today we're going to talk about property purchasing costs. Okay, you may be across what's involved in here, but I've seen a lot of people that are starting out. They go out and they don't do the proper due diligence. They don't engage the services at the right time in the process, and then they're running around, and that creates a lot of stress. Trust me. How do I know? I've done that myself. Okay, so we're going to cover a few other things. All right, but before you start, you think about purchasing costs as such for a specific property. I want to quickly talk about entity in structuring property. Okay, this is pretty huge, and I'm not going to pretend that I know the details about this. That's why I suggest you get and pay for professional advice. Back in the day, about 15-20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, that's probably about the first time I set up my entities and started purchasing properties under those. I remember I went to see a professional in property structuring. Okay, and back in the day, about 20 years ago, that cost me $2,000, and I was freaking out. Now that entity has saved me thousands of dollars worth in taxes and future planning and that sort of stuff. So don't be cheap. Okay, I suggest that you get and pay for your professional advisor. There's a lot of books out there that talk about trusts, discretionary trusts, family trusts, even buying that under your own name. By the way, I've got both. I've got properties under my own name, and I've got properties under my trusts. I've got a couple of trusts where I have some property, and then I've got some other properties under my name. Why did I put under my own name? Because the bank was so tight in their lending restrictions that they would only allow me to buy it under my own name. So I did. Okay, so there's moments where you got to buy the bullet and do what's appropriate. I've seen some veterans, as in people that are a lot more experienced than I am. They were happy to admit that the first couple of properties they bought under their names. It's not a sin. Obviously, if you have a job and then you have property income on top, you will be taxed a little bit higher. But I wish my tax bill was $1 million, because that means I'm making a lot of money. So you know what I'm saying, okay? So think about this for a second, okay? Before anything else, think about this. Educate yourself about this. Go talk to your solicitor friend and things like that. There's a couple of books out there. If you're curious enough, I'm going to put some resources there on entity structuring, and you can go from there. Okay, now property purchasing costs. Just going to the main topic. I like when I am on the road and I'm working out my yields and my quick calculations, as I did in a couple of previous episodes. My purchasing costs, as a rule of thumb, back of the envelope type of calculation, are 5% of the purchase price. Okay, so that gives you a good indication and a quick indication of how much you're also going to invest. If you have $200,000, obviously you cannot buy a property that's worth $200,000. You're going to have to factor in some of the purchasing costs. So as a rule of thumb, it's about 5%. So that'll be, a $2,000 property, that'll be about $10,000. Okay, so just bear that in mind, right? So a lot of the purchasing costs, look, and I have another note here. I'm going to go through them, but I have a note down here, which I think is very important, is the fact that in regards to purchasing costs, you're going to have, obviously, your conveyancing. Okay, that's going to be, I buy regional. So a lot of these conveyancers, I don't know, right? So I have to pick up the phone and engage with them, introduce myself, tell them my story, tell them what I'm trying to achieve. Pest and building inspection, that's huge. Don't pretend that if you see a pretty house, it's going to be also pretty on the inside. As a matter of fact, it has nothing to do with the way that the property is being built and it's a sound structure and if the pipes and plumbing and that sort of stuff are in good shape. Okay. Now this is where you engage a pest and builder inspector. Just Google it in the area that you're buying. There'll be a few options. Pick up the phone, ring a couple, get a feel for them. And again, engage early in the piece. Don't wait until you're transacting the property to engage in them. Ring them up front. Introduce yourself. Give them your number. Give them a heads up that this is what you're doing. Tell them your story. As far as pest and building inspections are concerned, I ring the guys and I tell them, look, I'm an interested investor. I'm not going to be there to have a look at the property. This is what I want you to look at, because if you give him that kind of information up front, he will look at the property in a different way. Oh, it's an investment property. So the fact that a paling on the fence, on the back fence, a couple of palings are broken, that's not going to be a deal breaker, right? He's going to go straight into the structure, the sound, the roof, the water, it's watertight, bathroom's watertight, that sort of stuff, the stuff that matter the most. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Engage early in the piece. Tell them your story. Okay, just ring them. You don't get charged by talking to these guys. Okay, stamp duty. Your conveyancer will work that out for you. And there's another one that I have here. It's a buyer's agent. Look, if you want to travel down the path of being a property investor and buy 2, 3 properties, 4, 5, eventually, I don't know. Look, I don't know your background. But in my case, in 20 years, I've done quite a few transactions. I kept some, I still hold some, I sold some. That sort of stuff. I never used a buyer's agent. I went up there because I had the mission to learn this on my own. But if you're not sure, there's a couple of reputable buyer's agents out there that they can assist you with that. But they're not cheap. But look, it's really up to you. But it doesn't take much to get to the same level of those guys, because at the end of the day, they'll be looking at the same properties. Yes, some of them have relationships, but a market is a market. Properties do come around every week, that sort of stuff. Okay. Now, I did mention be pre-approved for your funds. Again, ring a couple of mortgage brokers. Go to your local bank. Tell them, sit down with them. So I want to be pre-approved for a loan. A lot of those pre-approvals go 60, 90 days, that sort of stuff, so they don't charge you anything. You can just be ready and have that confidence in the back of your mind that if you see something that you like and you see the potential, then you can act on it. Okay, quickly recapping: purchasing costs. Don't be cheap, set it up straight up front. Okay, you don't need to purchase any property yet. Get this all sorted. Think about your own circumstances. Think about if you want it under your own name. Trust, family trusts, and so on. Okay, spend some time getting and reading a little bit about this. Okay, I'm going to put some resources there on these particular show notes. Okay, don't cut corners here. All right, the purchasing costs. The message here is engage early. Pick up the phone, send them an email, tell them exactly what you want, what you're after. They'll understand. They deal with investors all the time. In fact, they'd rather you do that because they know that you are serious about it and you're just going to do the transaction without wasting their time. Okay? Very important. As a rule of thumb, we discussed 5% of the purchase price. So if you're out there in the field, you see a property that's $200,000, you go, okay, look, how much money do I need to get into this property? Besides my finance, what are my purchasing costs? Rule of thumb, back of the envelope, 5% of the purchase cost, okay? And finally, last but not least, just be pre-approved for finance. I've been silly enough to submit offers and get offers accepted without finance, but I have a very follow through. I'm a strong follow through person. So I was able to pick up the phone and ring hundreds of people, and I'm exaggerating, but I do remember even on a Saturday morning ringing some non-bank lenders and finally with my fax machine in front of me and got my final approved. I'm happy to share those stories in future episodes. Okay. Now, thank you again for tuning in. Please feel free to share some comments. Hit the like button, subscribe, share it with family, friends. Go look back at the previous episodes. If you see what I'm doing, I'm having a bit of a chronicle on how to get to the point where you're going to be successfully purchasing property. Okay, this is a bit of a legacy, but at the same time, it's almost like a method, right? It's almost like the steps that you need to take to be able to successfully buy property. Okay, so feel free to go back, send me a message, subscribe, hit the little bell button for every time I put up a message. You get notified, and you can continue on your journey with me, with us. Okay, thanks once again.